In this video, we're going to be discussing Glock replacement barrels and trying to answer the question as to why and if you should change out the barrels within your Glock. So just a little bit of history about the Glock barrels. Glock uses a unique barrel. It's called a polygonal rifled barrel, which means it uses hexagonal or octagonal type polygonal rifling within the barrel. And that compares, for example, to the traditional land and grooves type rifling you would see in a traditional barrel. So conventional rifling will have the land as well as the groove. These are typically machine cut into the barrel, as opposed to polygonal rifling where you're going to have more of a hill and a valley, if you will, in the different types of barrel options. There are two different types of polygonal rifling. Most of the Glocks that you see today have the hexagonal cut in the 9mm and other calibers. The only exception is the 45 calibers that have the octagonal, not cut, but I'm sorry, but the actual design or the texturing of the barrel. There's an advantage of polygonal rifling over lands and groove rifling because it provides typically a better gas seal around the projectile as the bore is slightly smaller in diameter. However, one of the drawbacks with the polygonal rifling, it is more susceptible to leading within the barrel. And especially if you're firing rounds that are not jacketed rounds. If they're exposed lead rounds, you're going to typically see this problem more in the polygonal than you are in the lands and groove type rifling. Because of this, polygonal rifling also allows the gases to seal better than traditional land and groove rifling. Therefore, some will claim that there's an increased velocity, but there's also an increased potential problem with bore leading that can induce what's called pressure spikes through the polygonal rifling as opposed to the land and groove rifling. So now that you've seen the two, at least you know the major differences between the two. So what would be some of the benefits to changing out, going to an aftermarket barrel? Well, the first is a lot of the aftermarket barrels that are out there can provide better case support compared to the Glock OEM barrels. I have a couple examples here today. I have two lone wolf barrels as well as a Wilson match grade barrel for the Glock 17. But many claim, for example, especially people that are reloading, it can be better to fire one of these higher grade barrels because the case support allows the case life for the reloading to be better. There's also high quality that goes into these barrels, especially the Wilson, the KKMs, and other things like that. Because of the precision machining, some would argue that the lockup is actually better as well. Now, some of the more tangible benefits are the types of ammunition you can shoot out of these types of barrels. One of the limitations you have with the polygonal barrels is they typically recommend that you do not shoot leaded bullets out of them, especially in this case hard or soft cast lead bullets out of the polygonal barrels for what we talked about earlier, which is the higher degree of leading that can cause. Because of that, these drop-in barrels typically will take any type of bullet you run through there, whether they be cased or non-cased. Another benefit of these barrels are many of them you'll see have threading on the end of them so that you can run suppressors off of your Glock as well. So again, the added benefit is if you have a suppressor, you want to do suppressor fire, it's very easy to drop in one of these barrels that are already threaded for you to allow for that. A third benefit you're going to see is the ability to shoot multiple calibers out of the same pistol. So for example, in this case, I have a 357 SIG barrel that I can drop into my Glock 23, which will allow me to take my 40 caliber Glock and shoot the SIG 357 out of. So you have some abilities to drop calibers as well in the same pistol using these types of barrels. So what are some of the drawbacks? Well, the biggest drawback is cost. The fact that you just simply have to buy one or more barrels to go with your pistol relative to what you're ultimately doing. The other drawback is the difference in finishes. Most of the finishes you're going to see in these aftermarket barrels contrast with the black finish that's already on here. So when you actually drop one of these barrels in, you're going to see a contrast of the stainless barrel both at the chamber side as well as the front of the barrel. Now some would argue actually that looks kind of cool, they like it, but it does change and creates a contrast, and some people might like that, some people might not. Now the biggest thing that I hear people say is, you know what, the main reason why you want to put a high quality barrel in is for accuracy. And I wanted to discover for myself if that's true or not. So one of the things I did is I shot 2 different groups, both from the standard polygonal barrel that's in my Glock 17 and also a Wilson match grade barrel. Now I didn't bench rest these. I shot these as if I was just doing freestanding shooting so I could see a comparison between the two. And here's what I found. Now the first thing I did was they recommend, for example, the tightest groups of these tend to come out of better ammunition. So I first off shot the S&B ammunition just to see, for example, if there was any changes I would see between the S&B ammunition. So this is typical bulk 115 grain ammunition. So firing this out of my Glock 17 at 30 feet, I compared at the top is the OEM barrel results, and then the bottom is the Wilson match barrel. So when you look at the groups, largely, there's pretty much no difference between the two. Moving out to 50 feet, again, the Glock standard OEM barrel as well as the Wilson match barrel. Again, not much of a difference in separation between the two. Finally, I took this out to 70 feet and tried to figure out, okay, is the Glock OEM barrel any better or any worse than the Wilson match barrel? In this case, I actually fired a little bit tighter group with the OEM barrel than I did with the Wilson match barrel. But was it a significant difference absence of flyer? Not really. So from the argument standpoint of it won't make that big of a difference on the barrel for accuracy with lower grade ammunition, these targets prove that. So then what I wanted to do was figure out, did it make a difference if I put in higher grade ammunition? So in the second test, I ran the Federal Premium HST, which is 124 grain, higher grain bullet, to see, okay, am I going to get any better or any differences out of that compared to the lower grade ammunition? So back again to 30 feet. Stock OEM barrel from the Glock, Wilson match barrel. Is there any main differences between the two? Largely no. It's about the same groupings. Taking this out to 50 feet, again, I shot out of the stock Glock barrel versus the Wilson match barrel. Again, almost no separation between the two. Finally, I took it out to about 70 feet. The Glock barrel as opposed to the Wilson match barrel. And when you measure the differences between the two, there's almost no difference. So at least in how I shoot, and I'm certainly not a professional shooter. I don't go out and shoot thousands of rounds a week. There are people out there that do that could probably argue otherwise. But I do shoot enough where I tend to shoot better than most of the people I shoot with. And based upon that alone, based upon the results that I've seen, I've not seen a discernible difference in accuracy, at least with 70 feet in, between the Wilson match barrel as well as the Glock OEM barrel from accuracy perspective. But again, I'm only shooting this not as a professional shooter, but rather as somebody who shoots regularly, but not competitively. All right, so as far as alternatives, as I mentioned before, I am using the Wilson barrel. One of the nice things about the barrel changeouts is how quickly they can happen within the pistol itself. So anybody who owns the Glocks knows how quickly you can switch out the barrels. In this case, for example, when I'm doing the testing, I can quickly drop in the Wilson combat barrel, and I'm ready to go. And it's that quick and that simple to be able to change out the barrels within these pistols. And you can do the same with any of the other pistols out there. So many of these barrels there's a number of manufacturers for them now. Higher end ones, for example, KKM, we've got a couple Lone Wolves on the table. Wilson Combat, as I now have within the pistol itself and did my testing with. Barstow, Storm Lake, Blacklist. There's a number of great manufacturers out there that make a number of these drop-in barrels as an option for you. Which takes us to utility. What are the advantages of using a drop-in barrel over the standard polygonal barrel? The first one is, as I alluded to earlier, shooting hard cast bullets, especially if you're shooting 45 or my favorite caliber, which is the 10 millimeter. If you're shooting a healthy diet of hard cast bullets, it's a good idea to get a barrel swap out that will allow you to be able to shoot these without marring up or letting up the barrel. Now, if I go into the woods and I have a couple backup magazines full of hard or lead bullets, I'm okay with that. In fact, I've tested up to 100 or 220 grain bullets out of Underwood ammo with the hard cast, and I've not seen any tumbling effects with them, at least on the Underwood side. So therefore, I know out of my polygonal barrel, I can safely carry 220 grain down, especially on the Underwood ammo side, and not have a problem with my 10 millimeter shooting them out, because I won't be shooting a healthy diet of them. However, if I'm going to go out and practice and shoot 50 or 100 rounds, I'm probably going to want to drop in a 10 millimeter swap out barrel, just because I don't want to get the barrel cleaned up or that dirty. And if I do end up shooting lead bullets or hard cast bullets out of them, I will tend to spend more time cleaning the actual barrel out, the polygonal barrel, than I would normally with another barrel, just to make sure that I'm keeping it as clean as possible to reduce any possible pressure spikes that I might see in the future. The second application for a drop-in would be hunting. A lot of people use the 10 millimeter, for example, or deer hunting and other types of applications when you're shooting out of a pistol within a Glock. In this case, it would be the Glock 20. In that case, many states require that you have a 6-inch barrel to do that. This is a stock, or this is a lone wolf 10 millimeter 6-inch barrel I can drop into my Glock 20, which allows me to take my Glock 20 and make it legal within that state to be able to shoot big game out of my Glock. So there's a hunting application for this as well. The third argument is accuracy. So the Wilson grade barrel, which I have in the pistol now, claims to have 1 in 16 twist with a conventional land and groove rifling. However, they also claim that you can get about 2-inch or less of accuracy at 25 yards with good ammunition. As well as there would be arguments that there's better case support for the actual pistol. As I just alluded to in my targets that I fired earlier, at least freestanding for me, I don't see a big difference between 70 feet within or in between the accuracy I receive out of the Wilson Combat or the polygonal. Now, I'm sure there's people out there that shoot better than I can shoot and are going to make the argument that, yeah, there is a discernible difference to them. But I can tell you right now, from the way I shoot and the way most people shoot around me, they're not going to notice the difference between the two as far as accuracy is concerned, based upon what my own experiences are, as well as what I've done for this test. Another application would be firing suppressors. If you want to fire a suppressor, that's where these things really shine, because you can buy them already pre-threaded, typically through all the manufacturers I mentioned earlier, and easily mount a suppressor onto your pistol to fire it. And then the final application is the caliber conversion. So for example, this is a 357 SIG that I can drop into my Glock 23, which is a 40 caliber, to drop it from a 40 cal down to a 357 SIG if I wanted to fire 357 SIGs out of my 40 caliber Glocks. You also have the ability to drop it down to a 9 millimeter as well. There's also a conversion from a 10 millimeter down to a 45 ACP. There's a number of different options you have, but there is the ability to drop your calibers down in the pistol, the Glock that you're shooting, in order to shoot either a different caliber or reduce the cost of what you're firing through the pistol. So the final thoughts about caliber conversions and drop-in barrels for Glocks are this. You simply have to ask yourself, is it worth it for you to drop in a couple $100s to drop in a new barrel onto your Glock? Because at least from my experience, from an accuracy perspective, out of my Glock 17, I have not seen a discernible difference for me to be able to say, because of accuracy alone, I want to drop in an aftermarket barrel in my Glock, because I'm going to achieve, when I fire it, better accuracy than I can out of the Glock barrel. However, if I'm going to be shooting a heavy diet of hard cast bullets, if I'm going to be hunting, which some states require a 6-inch barrel, or if I'm going to be doing suppressor fire where I need the threaded barrel, then yes, it makes a lot of sense. But does it make sense to drop $200 into your pistol just for the sake of having a newer barrel, maybe a Wilson Combat or a KKM, claiming that the accuracy will be better when in many cases you might not even see it? That's a question you have to ask yourself. For me, I've already answered that question, and I hope that what I've reviewed today is a benefit to you when you determine whether or not you need an additional drop-in barrel for your Glock. If you like our channel or you like this video, please like us on YouTube, and thanks for watching.